Attention to roll call. Welcome to the 265 Police Live Series, brought to you by the New York's finest retired and unfiltered podcast. The mission of this podcast is to provide expert analysis of past and present law enforcement related events with a trained eye. Listen to the boots on the ground weigh in on the court of public opinion. All right, everyone. Welcome to 265 Police Live, brought to you by New York's finest retired unfiltered podcast. I'm retired Lieutenant Eric Dim, most complaint cop, NYPD. Along with me here today is John McCarry, the founder of New York's finest retired unfiltered podcast. Retired Lieutenant, forced out due to the vaccine. Along with me today here is the great man, Roger Stone. Roger, thank you so much for being here. And of course, Sal Greco, wrongfully terminated by the NYPD. Well, first I'd like to say, Roger, I just want to honor you. Thank you for being on the show. Roger Stone has been part of numerous political campaigns, which include, of course, Nixon, Reagan, and now Donald Trump. Roger Stone has been targeted by an anti-Trump crowd throughout the United States, along with Sal Greco, who's actually endured the same type of pressure and the same alienated because of his political views and also his friendship with Roger Stone. So today we have an opportunity to talk about the hypocrisy that has been going on with Sal Greco being terminated and also Cardi B being a guest of honor at the New York City Police Department. And the irony to this is that Cardi B did not go there on her own volition. She was forced there by community service, which I don't even know how you get community service about this. But Sal Greco was wrongfully terminated for his association with Roger Stone. Roger Stone was pardoned by Donald Trump. And from the research I've done, pardon means that you're exonerated and you no longer have a record. And if I'm correct, Roger Stone is able to vote. He's able to carry a firearm, which to me means he's a good standing citizen. Cardi B is a convicted felon, an admitted blood gang member, admittedly robbing men, drugging men. So I don't see how she's influential. So Roger, let's just go into it. Can you tell us your thoughts about this?
Sure. First of all, let me salute all three of you for your service to the people of New York City. You have put your lives on the line for many years to serve the public, which sadly today, if you're a police officer, seems unfortunately thankless. Sal Greco is a 14-year veteran of the New York City Police Department. Often given the graveyard shift in some of the most dangerous and undesirable precincts in the city. He has an unblemished record of service to the people of New York, and he's done nothing whatsoever wrong. Now, he and I were in Washington, D.C. on January 5th and 6th. On the 5th, I gave a public speech at a legally permitted event. And the contents of that speech are covered by the First Amendment. I certainly didn't call for violence or insurrection or lawlessness or anything of the kind. I did exercise my free speech right to question the irregularities and the anomalies in the 2020 election. When more people are registered, more people vote than are registered to vote in a given precinct in, say, Philadelphia, that's evidence of malfeasance and fraud. Every American has the right to ask those questions. Neither Sal Greco and I were on the ellipse January 6th. We didn't march to the Capitol. We weren't at the Capitol. Neither one of us knows anything about what happened at the Capitol. And any assertion that we knew in advance about or was involved in any way in or condoned any illegal action on that day is categorically false. But when Sal Greco returned to New York to go back to work, he learned that a formal complaint had been lodged against him. He went through an administrative process in which he was terminated from the job he loved, losing his pension, losing his good standing, making it essentially impossible to work as a police officer in another state or another jurisdiction. And it is based on a claim by the NYPD that he associated with me and that I am technically a convicted felon, despite the fact that I received a full and unconditional presidential pardon. The problem with this is several fold. First of all, Eric Adams, who loves to wear the fact that he was a police officer on his sleeve, was a police captain, admits in his book that he provided personal security for Mike Tyson, a convicted felon, and Louis Farrakhan, an anti Semite and a convicted felon. He was brought up on these same charges under the same regulations, and they docked his vacation pay by 15 days. Big deal. They didn't ruin his life. They didn't cost him the job that he was engaged in. They didn't take his pension. They didn't make him unemployable as a police officer in any other jurisdiction. So there's an equal protection argument here. There's also First Amendment issues. Sal Greco has every right to be my friend and a friend of my family. There's no evidence that Sal Greco engaged in any improper or illegal activity in Washington, D.C., or in any other city at any other place or time. Now, this hypocrisy, this double standard, is playing out in spades. Cardi B, of whom I'm not particularly a fan, very clearly shows up at the New York Police Academy. She is a convicted felon. She is a admitted gang member. She has made music advocating the murder of the police, but it's still a violation of the exact same NYPD regulation that they used to terminate Sal Greco. Now, I looked at this regulation this morning. It doesn't say except for when you are involved in community service. There's no exceptions. So why is this being hailed in the media as some great piece of entertainment or some rehabilitating act on her part when it violates the exact same rules under which Sal Greco was terminated?
Roger, before we go any further, I just want to ask one question, because it's always dawned on me, and I always wanted to ask you this. So throughout your friendship with Sal, were you ever aware that there was potential that Sal could face some type of discipline, that this was an authorized relationship for the NYPD, or that was never a concern? You didn't think about that because of the First Amendment? Was this something that you thought of? Was this something that was talked about at all during your friendship?
Nothing that I ever spent 5 minutes working out, because the claims by the NYPD and claims by some in the New York Post and the New York Daily News that Sal Greco was uncompensated security for me are patently false. First of all, he's certainly uncompensated. He's an uncompensated friend. No, I've never paid him anything. But he's a friend of mine. We became friends through social media. He was very, very supportive of me and my family when we were targeted in the Mueller witch hunt. I was unaware of any New York City Police Department regulation that would prohibit our communications. But if nobody in the NYPD is in touch with anyone who is a convicted felon, how do their street informants work? There's the question I'd like to ask the police commissioner. How does that work?
That's actually a great question. So I just want to sum it up. Roger Stone, thank you so much for being here. You're identifying the friendship that you have with Sal Greco, and you've been an influential person. It's in my opinion, and John, we talked offline, you've been persecuted by this anti-advocates because you support Donald Trump. It's unfortunate. And here we see Sal Greco. He's persecuted on a local level. So, John, you and I have been pretty adamant. We've been vocalized and expressive about our opinions about the hypocrisy, the double standards of the New York City Police Department when it comes to Sal Greco and Cardi B. And I'd also like to highlight there's someone else that I thought was also being persecuted by this double standard. Her name is Sergeant Dana Martillo. And the reason why I like to bring that up, with the nexus with this, is that she was wearing a Trump patch on her uniform, which she lost 40 penalty days, 40 vacation days. And I mean, the sum of money and just the pain and stress and suffering that she had to go through for that is absolutely an atrocity. If anyone should be doing girl talk, it should be her. So, John, let me get your thoughts on these tweets that we got out there. Maybe this is a good opportunity to put them up there so that the public can see.
Yeah, sure. We'll get to the tweets, but obviously, I put out a few tweets. They kind of went viral, got some headlines, some bad press for the media. I think even hip hop magazines saw the hypocrisy in it. The first thing that came to my head that when I tweeted about it was what happened to Sal. And I'll go directly into that. But Sal, I'm really curious. Like, what'd you think when you saw the NYPD parading Cardi B and round in the police academy?
That's unbelievable. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Eric and John for having me on. I never got a chance to actually work with you guys in NYPD. I didn't know you while I worked there, but you've actually become good friends of mine now. And it's also an honor to be here with my very close friend and special counsel, the great Roger Stone, also known as the Wise Man. So when we get back to Cardi B, okay, let's elaborate a little bit. My case, right? There were 4 administrative charges I was hit with. The first one's right here, okay? Patrol Guide Procedure 20310, page 1, paragraph 2C. Public contact prohibited conduct. General regulations. Wrongfully, knowingly associated with a person reasonably believed to be engaged in or likely to have engaged in criminal activities. They were stating that it was both Roger and Kristen, right? Then the next charge is conduct prejudicial to the police department. I acted as uncompensated security for Roger and Kristen January 5th and 6th. And then the last part is misleading statements because they asked me about 50 times if I was Roger's security. The fact I said no is a lie to them, apparently. So now we go into Cardi B. You just read this. Okay? I just read this out. It doesn't say exceptions. It doesn't say. It says wrongfully and knowingly associated. So Chief Holmes, which is a 3-star chief and the head of the police academy, apparently her or someone else, we don't know who, invited Cardi B, who does have a record. She's been criminally convicted. She's also a known gang member to this day. She's also adversarial to the police department. She's rapped songs against them. She's tried to fight them in the street when they were arresting her husband or her boyfriend, whoever that is. So conduct prejudicial to the police department. He is paraded around a secure police facility with other officers escorting her. I don't know if you want to call that uncompensated security or whatever you want to call it. And they're wrongfully associated with someone who was likely to have engaged in criminal activity. By law, by definition, they are violating their own patrol guide procedure, which they stated I did. And unlike them, well, I don't know how many officers are involved, they terminated me for this. But I guess the 30 and 40 or 50 officers are in the building. Nobody wants to open up an investigation on them, I guess. So the thing is there has to, it's not, you can't have 2 standards. You have to have 1 standard. It's 1 rule for all. That's what makes protection. So this weekend, when I saw this, obviously I got my DMs, my text messages went through the roof saying, hey, did you just see that Cardi B was in the police academy? And I mean, she's a convicted criminal. And here you are, you got terminated as stating that Roger is some kind of bad guy. And therefore you got terminated. And that's the double standard here. And it's a Stone's rule. You know, hypocrisy gets them. It's actually a Stone's rule. You can't state, if you're stating that this is for whatever it was called, a girl talk or for community service, there's no exceptions to the rule. So you can't, so I want to know who's the arbiter of this First Amendment right that you have associated with people stating Cardi B is okay for the police to hang out with, including all the civilians there. They are also in violation of this rule. It's not just the cops, it's the PAAs, it's the janitor. They're all associated with a criminal. Who is the arbiter that states Cardi B is okay to hang out with? She's a reformed criminal, but Roger Stone and Kristen Davis are the scum of the earth because, I don't know, they're conservatives. They were, Roger is an advisor to Trump. We don't like that. This is the avenue this seems to go. That's a political thing. But when I saw that tweet, John, it really hit home. I saw a couple of articles. It went viral on Twitter. A friend of ours put a TikTok up about it. I also understand it was a former police commissioner. He chimed in with something about this because he wasn't happy about hearing about what happened with Cardi B. So it was a lot. It was very touching of you, John. It meant a lot to me. You actually jumped on it, and we never even contacted each other. You just did it, out of the goodness of your heart, and I thank you very much for it.
I'll pull the tweet up now. Let's go through it now. I'll read it out. So, I basically put, watch NYPD news associate with known criminal I am Cardi B while they hold on to the illegal termination of the Sal Greco for being friends with Roger Stone. FYI, Roger was not drugging and robbing Johns of their money and jewelry. Cardi B and her WAP was. So that went pretty viral. The Daily News picked it up. They had my tweet in there. They winded up pulling the tweet out. They left some of my statement in there. They pulled out the her and her WAP, which I was there, but the Post picked it up. He actually had hip hop magazines pick it up, and it went around. And honestly, the hypocrisy is outstanding. I could think of a million reasons why it's so wrong. And there's another tweet that wasn't in there, and it was a tweet from her earlier that day, right before she enters there. She's complaining that she has to wake up early for community service. So she's letting her fan base know. When you see me with the cops later, I'm being forced to do this. So it wasn't out of the goodness of her heart. It wasn't a surprise visit. And Eric actually sent me a tweet just today from the 4A precinct CO, the commanding officer, saying, he's thanking Cardi B for her surprise visit to the police academy to speak to young ladies and empower them.
It's really, it's really extraordinary. What people don't realize is that when you are targeted in this way, that the government, in this case New York City, they have unlimited funds with which to persecute you. They have an unlimited platoon of lawyers with which to persecute you. In my case, my wife and I lost our home. We lost our savings. We lost most of our insurance because I was put under a gag by a federal judge. I wasn't allowed to defend myself. People today continue to call me a Russian traitor based on the fact that there's a lack of any evidence to support that outrageous claim. But Sal Greco has essentially lost his life savings, lost everything he has in a fight for justice. He's filed a lawsuit. It's a very strong lawsuit. It's become a much stronger lawsuit, or it's about to, because previously we had the example of Mayor Adams, for whom there was a different standard. But now you have a much more recent example, which is outrageous. There is no exception for community service. She's not supposed to be communicating or in contact with New York City police officers under the regulation under which Sal Greco was terminated. And she can't be treated differently than they treat Sal Greco, or they treat me in this case. So folks who want to help can go to helpthisnYcop.com, helpthisnYcop.com, one word, helpthisnYcop.com, because this is very, very expensive. I'm trying to help Sal raise the money to pay his lawyers. And what does he want back? Does he want his job back? No, not really. What he wants is his good name back. What he wants is his pension back that he paid into all those years. And he wants his good name back so he could go work as a law enforcement officer in a different jurisdiction, perhaps a jurisdiction in which law enforcement officers are more respected for the dangerous job that they do.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Sal, I just want to empathize with you, because I look at this and I say to myself, and we look at Instagram and Twitter every day. That's what we're doing. And every time I see these hypocrisies and these double standards, I say to myself, honestly, Sal, I say, wow, how does he feel about this? I mean, his blood must be boiling. They're rubbing it in your face. I mean, it's just clearly, they just, one time after another, just dangle a carrot in front of your face, say, hey, look at this. We can do whatever we want without punishment. There's no rules. John says it all the time, and I agree. This is a game that the NYPD plays, but every game there's different rules. And that's why I had put out a tweet. I put out some information on Instagram. I said, Sal Greco was persecuted for a term that I never even heard of, uncompensated security. To this point, I still don't even know what that means. None of us do. But in order for Cardi B to be in our most precious areas of NYPD facilities, she had to be escorted to these facilities. So is that compensated security? And I agree with you, Roger. You're 100% right. There is no standards. There's no exceptions for on duty, off duty. If someone is providing community service, there's no exceptions. If they're going to file this patrol guide, then they have to file a patrol guide to the letter of the T. They cannot bend it in any facet that they want and manipulate it. And that's what we see with the NYPD. They manipulate it, and it's unfortunate, and they placate to the public. And it really pains me because I think that we should have moral principles. I take pride in us being good leaders. And when I saw that tweet today from the 4-8 precinct commanding officer, him sucking up to his bosses so that he could get promoted by saying that Cardi B, it was a pleasure to have her doing girl talk, and it was a pleasure to have her. This tweet came out 2 days later. It's obvious that he was pushed by the NYPD to put this tweet out there. But where's the moral principle for this commanding officer to stand up and say, you know what? I'm proud. I'm here. I'm a commanding officer, but I'm not putting this tweet out there. I mean, I don't know if he has sons or daughters, but let's say he has a daughter. Do you want this one doing this, Cardi B giving girl talk to your daughter? I find it hard to believe that you actually believe that tweet that you put out there. And it just shows that they're sucking up to their bosses to get promoted. And it's not about public safety. It's not the best interest of the people. It's about political gain.
That's right, Eric. I mean, listen, I saw the tweet you actually put up. And it's just, it's more the CO of a command is now sucking up to them, stating, "Oh, it's okay to hang out with this again. It's okay to hang out with this gang member, but Roger, we can't be seen with him because for whatever reason they have an issue with Roger." And stating something like that, you're saying they're dangling the carrot. Goes, listen, Eric, I've seen a lot of comments on Twitter. You got people calling me a grifter. You got people saying, "Oh, look at this guy. He's making up a story." I had somebody close to me who even doubted me. And, right now we're not even talking because they read the NYPD's response to my first complaint and are saying, well, you must have done something wrong because the way this is written, I mean, listen, the way the NYPD writes things against you, they make you believe that, oh, this person is the worst person on earth or they've done whatever. But, of course, none of that was true. Because if you also remember in my case, they used an administrative subpoena, 14-137A in the New York City Administrative Code. And that's how they got my records from Verizon and the Willard Hotel and social media. But the case was criminal. That's what they wrote. So for the criminal case, you have to go through the district attorney's office. You can't go through your administrative powers. There's a total abuse of power there, which is also stated in a lawsuit. And right here in the People versus Iodelli, which was in the New York Supreme Court, Queens County, April 18, 2012, the court found that the subpoena used was improper, the evidence was suppressed, and the case was dismissed. So that's the second thing that's going on in this lawsuit, separately from just the associating with a criminal part, which in itself is indefensible at this point with Cardi B involved. But the subpoena part is also an abuse of power. And then the third part was I was investigated and had to be brought down to the January 6th committee to essentially answer the same questions that the NYPD were questioning me about, which in the NYPD, you cannot plead the fifth, as you know. Any investigation, you must answer or you lose your job. That's the rules there. So I couldn't say, hey, you asking me, Roger posted something on Parler. How is that? Now, how can I answer for Roger? But you have to answer the question. You can't say, oh, I don't know or whatever, because they'll just keep spinning it back around. That's what this IAB investigator did, this interrogator that, he's Mr. Wonderful, by the way. So you have to answer the questions. And this entire procedure, including the department trials, the advocate, everything we look to change this whole thing. So the rule is overbroad, the associating with a felon. The prejudicial, the police, that thing's a joke with the uncompensated security. So I'm looking to change everything. I'm an agent of change. I'm not here to clout chase. I'm not here to be rich. I'm not here to make friends with all these Hollywood people. I was a regular Joe. I just happened to be friends with Roger Stone, who happened to me and him just hit it off. It's like Roger, like I said, he's my friend. He's my special counsel. We're like two Sicilians. It's like we always have a good time together. It has nothing to do with doing anything or off-duty employment or whatever the hell they were claiming. So I'm an agent of change. So when you're supporting me, you're supporting yourself. Because here, look, this can happen to you. I'm sure there's other cops behind me and federal agents and sheriffs that this has happened to, but they don't have a voice and they're afraid or whatever the case is. In my case, could change everything for this country, where you realize that, you know what, you can't just pick on someone with something ridiculous like this and try to ram it through and nobody says anything or nobody challenges it. If you see something, you should be able to challenge it, especially in this country. I mean, it's still the United States of America. I mean, I don't know if Joe Biden's America, but it is still the United States of America. So you would hope that you could challenge something that's so unjust and egregious as this situation has been.
I just want to point out that there's very selective enforcement, as we could see, and that's the overriding theme in all of it. It's selective enforcement. We're going to enforce against the people who we don't agree with. I firmly believe that if Sal Greco was friends with a rapper who's on the left, who prescribes to the left's ideology, he would have no issues whatsoever, even if he was found guilty and admittedly did compensated security, he would be given a penalty of 15 days. He would not be fired for it. Sal Greco was terminated in a fashion like we've never seen before. I mean, it was a complete political prosecution, persecution, excuse me, and it's completely wrong. And the NYPD went out of their way to contact the Department of Justice as well, and to get a letter to try to state that Roger is still a convicted felon, even though he has a pardon, and which is it's a wrong term. The man could carry a gun license. The man could vote. He did not partake in street criminal activity. He didn't partake in criminal activity whatsoever. He himself was a victim of political persecution, and selective enforcement. So, Roger, I thank you for taking time to sit with us and to help Sal in this fight.
Well, folks, you see it going across the screen there. It says helpthisnycop.com. This is an expensive fight. I'm trying to help Sal raise the money to pay for his lawyers. They now have, I think, a very strong amended complaint, adding the activities and the double standard regarding Cardi B. John, Eric, I salute you guys for standing with Sal and by continuing to tell people about his case. And I appreciate your inviting me here today to tell my side of it. God bless you guys.
Thank you so much.
Eric, you want to keep going? Let's keep going.
Okay. Absolutely. I definitely, Roger, when he has an opportunity to view this, I appreciate him taking the opportunity. It's there's also total hypocrisy. Even if Roger was never pardoned, let's just say Roger was never pardoned, and that was not the case. I think there's no comparison. All right, because you're an NYPD cop. You work on a local level, on a street level. You don't work in when it comes to making arrests for Congress, for tampering with evidence, things of that nature. We work on a local level. So I always think that when it comes to discipline, something should correlate, and it should actually be. They always use that term in civilian complaint, internal affairs or investigations, narrowly related to your duties. You should be evaluated on what's narrowly related to your duties. I would think if you had a friendship with Cardi B, that has much more of an effect and impact of Sal Greco working on the streets, making arrests for DWI, for DUI, where he has the potential to stop someone that may be friends with Cardi B, that may persuade him taking action as a police officer. The chances of him pulling someone over that is friends with Roger Stone, that's going to tamper with evidence at a meeting of Congress, is highly unlikely. Yeah. But here we go one step, right? Here we go one step further. He was pardoned, and from all the research I've done, I'll say it again, which means he was exonerated. It's like it never happened. He has a clean slate. He has the right to vote. He has the right to carry a firearm. He still is an influential person. He's worked on numerous campaigns. It's just unfortunate because of his political stance. The only reason that you're in this position is because you have a friend that sides with Donald Trump. And that's the only reason that you're in this position. But it's so sad to look at this commanding officer placate to his bosses. It just shows that the police department is so weak. There's no leadership. And in some respects, I was telling John offline, I said, John, you know what? Maybe I can't fault this commanding officer that much, right? Because his leaders are telling him that's what's appropriate, that's what's okay, that's what you need to do to move up in the New York City Police Department. So he may think, I don't agree with it. Honestly, I think he's a total coward. I think he's completely weak. He shows no moral principle. If that was myself or John or you, Sal Greco, for the short time that I know you, I know none of us would put our stamp on that and agree with that, which is why we would not move that far within the police department, because we would have the moral courage to say, wait a minute, I know I have daughters. I don't want Cardi B doing girl talk with my daughters, who is a convicted felon criminal. This is absolutely ridiculous, the hypocrisy. And we go one further. We talk about Sergeant Dana Martillo. I hope she has an opportunity to watch this. If she had a patch that was a picture of Cardi B that said WAP, would we be in the same position? Would she be losing 40 days? I find it highly unlikely. And after seeing that tweet, it's obvious we know the answer. So, Sal, what are your thoughts on the hypocrisy with yourself and Sergeant Dana Martillo? Do you think that they're connected?
I actually have spoken to Dana right about when she was, I believe, before she dropped the lawsuit. There's other factors in that case beyond the patch. I mean, as you know, in this department, anyone who's like outspoken or you could be anything political, they're gonna crush you. It's either you go along to get along, or they're gonna get you out of the way, and they don't care. Like, look at me. I had an unblemished record. 320 arrests. I've been in and out of court my whole career. I never lost a case. Okay, never. So I've been in and out of court. I had one CCRB. I know you were like the king of CCRB. I was only there one time, and I was exonerated. Okay, I had no complaints. So she went in there. I know there's a rule you can't have any kind of patches. I've seen even inspectors. I've seen them with the patches on their body armor, their vest that's over the uniform, and it could be like the Punisher logo. I've seen that on every cop. The Punisher. I never wore these patches, but I've seen the Punisher logo. I've seen the military, who's in the Marines, who's in the Army, who's in the Navy. But to pick on her because it's something about Trump or the Punisher thing with the 40 days of suspension. That's egregious. We all know that could be a few days. That could be all right, you worked midnights, now you're going to work day tour. You could handle this any other way. They decided to say, this is political. Daily News, wherever it is. I've noticed one thing. In the New York City Police Department, if it catches the Daily News or the New York Post or any of these newspapers, even if your body camera is filming this, the officer will be investigated, and there's a chance he could be suspended or modified or taken off the street, pending whatever they want to state afterwards, because they just can't handle any kind of publicity. What happened to the days of Rudy Giuliani would sit there and go, I'm backing my cop, and that's it. I don't care what you write. Write whatever you want, because it's not true. I looked at it. I'm the mayor. I have the final say, and that's it. You don't have that anymore. And Eric Adams, who is the mayor, was a cop. He sometimes comes out and says that, but he doesn't do it enough. I mean, something like this was political. The only reason Dana is in this position is because it's a patch with the Trump hair or whatever it was on there. If it was a regular patch, it would just be a couple of vacation days, because technically by the patrol guide, I know you're not supposed to have any kind of patches, but as you know, just like in my case, just like I stated before, the Stone's rule, hypocrisy gets them. You've seen that many people, many different ranks wearing patches. They just happen to pick on her because.
Yeah, it's a great point, dude, because it really does mirror your case, because it's egregious, the penalty, right? Like, I don't agree with her wearing the patch. I wore the patch too. I never wore the vest on the outside of my stuff. Even when I was in crime, I always, even though I like wearing medium shirts like everybody else, I would always wear an outer shirt to cover my vest. I would wear something with cut off sleeves to cover my vest. Yeah. So you would never see whatever patches I had on. You wouldn't even know I was wearing a vest. I mean, cops know, the perps know, but average citizen probably didn't even know I was wearing a vest. So I don't agree with it. But I mean, we could go back in history of all the people that got in trouble for wearing a patch, and they're not going to get anywhere near 40 days. They're lucky if they're going to get 40 minutes.
And a suspension.
And a suspension, which, yeah, you're right. And it's completely egregious. And it's the same thing with you. Like, how many cops do actually compensated security? They never even proved that you did any security. They had no proof of it. They just said you did it. No way you and Roger Stone are friends. You're doing that. That was the assumption made on your part, because they couldn't believe that, which is ridiculous to me, because we've had cops marry country singers. We've had cops that marry billionaires. We've had cops that like whatever. They interact with very famous people all the time. So they just make an assumption about you. There's no way you're friends with Roger Stone, so we're just going to charge you with doing security for him. But if I, in fact, did do security, they had me on film doing security for someone and getting paid for it, and they had in my financial records, which they didn't have for you, and nothing in your financial records because you didn't do it. There was no financial transactions. And if they would have had that, I would have probably got 15 days, like everybody else throughout history. Maybe 20. I would have never got terminated. I mean, it's insane to me.
That part there, though, because the patrol guide states off-duty employment, there is nothing about uncompensated security. That's why they stated conduct prejudicial to the police department, which is they can say anything. You wore white socks where everybody, you wore black socks where everybody's supposed to wear white socks. Or white socks when you're supposed to wear black socks. That's how the whole patrol guide procedure operates. They just want to, how do I pin this on him to make him look bad? Because listen, me and Roger, even to this day, I have people still, you had to have been in security. Because there's people that watch this, they don't know. Are they haters, or maybe they're envious that I'm friends with Roger, or the proximity of how close I am to President Trump. I was never his security, never in my life. The closest thing you could say to anything, which still you can't say because you're friends. We go out to dinner. Does Roger pay for the bill? Yeah, he's probably paid more than I have. Do I pay for the bill? Yes, I have also. This is not any kind of transaction. Two people that are friends. I mean, I spent Christmas with Roger. I've spent Easter with Roger's family. I was there for his trial, his family. I've spent a ton of time with his kids. I spent time with me and Roger and his wife, Nidia. So this is a familial relationship, not a I'm his security relationship. But people are still in their mind, they're being told from other people, we have to believe these other people because they know me and Roger better than me and Roger know each other. He has to be security. He has to. That's your problem around here. You can never assume. I mean, listen, we could have assumed when we were out in the street, Joe's on the corner. Joe's been arrested 25 times and he's probably dealing drugs. Can I run over there and just bum rush him and handcuff him? No. You have to wait and see if this is actually true. And in my case, they never did that. They bum rushed the whole thing. They expected it to be a criminal case. They really thought that there was going to be something there. And the more they looked into it, the more you saw that there was nothing there. So at that point, they were so invested in this. And I don't know how much this cost the city or the taxpayers. I don't know how much money they spent. But now they had to do something because the Daily News wrote about it. So that means now we have to do something. They could have easily just said, take a 10-day vacation hit. You associating. Okay, just don't do it again. Or in so many ways this could have been handled. But they went the whole 9 yards and to this day stayed to you're his security with no proof and you're associating with someone who's likely to engage in criminal activity. But hey, we'll invite Cardi B, who's everything we just said. Basically, that's what she is. She is the epitome of what they were trying to make Roger and Kristen out to be, which is it's the biggest hypocritical thing I've ever seen done, at least in my time, as I was involved in the NYPD now a year after, at least the year that I've been gone from it.
Wow. The problem with the NYPD, and I've been saying this for years, I was a special ops lieutenant, so I would go to CompStat. And I would hear the dais of chiefs, and they would speak, and they would give out the information that's supposed to be funneled down to the troops. And it was always different than what we actually heard at the precinct. They always talked different two sides of their mouths, especially if there were reporters in the room, district attorneys in the room. The NYPD does a great job of manipulating situations and talking out of both sides of their mouths.
Yeah.
And that's why I particularly have a problem with this case also, Sal, is that I think the police department has to decide how are they going to attack you and what's their stance. Are you a friend of Roger, or is it a professional relationship that you do in security? I mean, I don't see how you would be his friend and also his security. It just doesn't make sense. And to me, this is a complete paradox.
That's what
Go ahead, Sal. I'm sorry.
This is the problem with this also. I am 6'3". I do go to the gym 6 days a week. I'm a runner. I've been a fitness guy my whole life. That appearance, because you see me, now people will assume he has to be security. He has to be. He just has to. But that's not how it works, because as you know, if Lou Ferrigno was walking down the street with somebody many years ago and he's 6'4", was he, let's say, Donald Trump security when he was hanging out with Donald Trump? I mean, that's how psychotic some of these people are. There is nothing there. It's a nothing burger. We are friends. If I walk down the street with my friend, that means we're friends. Just because I train a certain way or I look a certain way, that doesn't make me security. Just like I think John wrote it. I think John put a tweet out. He goes, he went to have a dinner with his wife. Does that now make him her uncompensated security? Because technically speaking, if you have your firearm or your shield or whatever and you're off duty, technically they can say, hey, you're uncompensated security for your wife because you're walking around protecting her with your badge and your shield on. You know, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but John's not 6'3", so I don't think anyone's going to confuse him.
My wife's 4'10", so in the pictures,
hey, listen, I'm not 6'3" either, so
there's still the height appearance there, though. You know.
Hey, what's going on there? That height disparity. You have to be his security. Who's going to protect you? She's too short. You know. So then you're discriminating yet again. You're discriminating, and you're also assuming. Those are two things you can't do in life. You know. In my case, they'll say, "Hey, there's a guy. That guy looks like Roman Reigns. Hey, wait a minute. He's got to be his security. He has to be." But it's just you're assuming, and your projection. It's just you're projecting and assuming, and that's one thing as a police officer in particular, anyone in law enforcement. You can't do. You can never assume. You have to have the facts in your hands. How would you go to a district attorney, which in this case, they never did. They were supposed to. They just did everything administratively, even though it said criminal. So that's a whole nother separate issue. How would you go to a district attorney and say, he's his security? How do I know? Oh, well, somebody said so. That's all they had. One cop told them that and wrote that in a letter. Does that now mean you're his security? Where's the proof? Do you have any receipts? Oh, you're in a picture with him. You have to be that. If they never applied to people that were hanging out with John Gotti in the 80s. It's always picture with John Gotti. Does that make you now? Oh, you're his associate. You're his criminal. I mean, you could just be walking down the street and the guy says, "Hey, how are you?" You shook his hand. There you go. Oh, that's it. So now this man has to be involved in a crime family business. But this is the exact way this has become, which is outrageous. I can't believe we've become this. And this is from the 80s to 90s to 2000, all the way till now, 2020s, where you're in a picture or somebody states something, it's true. There's no facts to it. We won't even look into it. We're gonna stamp this on him and say he's security because Officer Joe said so and he wrote a letter. That's what they essentially did here, because there was never any proof. There's no proof that then, now, or today. We're friends. That's it.
Well,
very good.
Sal, in your case, were you targeted for security as part of the investigation, or was this just thrown in at some time? And the reason why I asked that is because I never heard you throughout this stance and through this fight now. I've never heard you use the term moonlighting. And I'm under the impression when they target someone for security, they use the term moonlighting. And I haven't yet heard you use that term yet. So were you targeted for doing extra security, or this was just an add-on, like a catch-all, we got you a moment?
From what I was told when I originally stepped in, it was they want to talk to you about your association or your relationship with Roger Stone and Kristen Davis and security. They've asked that question. You could read it over the 5 hours I was being interrogated, probably more. Are you their security? You could read this over and over and over and over again. And the closest I got, I think there was somewhere where I said, technically no or something. When you ask something a million times and you can't say, I'm done, you can't do anything. You can't even reach across the table and go, guy, enough is enough. You've heard this a million times. How many more times are you going to go over this? They're just trying to make you get tripped up so that you say, yes, I am, or something crazy, because you want to jump over the table and tell the guy, stop. I mean, we've been through this. But the closest I got was saying something like that. And of course, when you're badgered for like hours about the same thing, you're either going to say something that's like when I said technically I am not the somebody would say that I am, because that's why I'm there. You've obviously keep asking me if I'm security because somebody somewhere said he is his security. You have no facts, no proof. So the only thing you have is if I say whatever. They're looking for me to say that I was, which I wasn't, but they're looking for that. So if they keep asking you this, it's almost like if we keep telling him, maybe he'll believe it himself. That's the whole investigation. How it started was, are you associating with them? What's your relationship with them? And the security thing, which was asked at least 10, 20, 30. I lost count how many times it was asked to me about the security thing. And it's ridiculous because off-duty employment. Are you off-duty employment? The answer is no, because you have to fill out paperwork. But you only have to do that if you're technically really security and making money. I've actually, I paid for dinners. I paid to come to Florida on my own dime. These are things that I spent money to be with my friend. It's all friendship. That's my relationship. I'm not his. I mean, he was in D.C. when he had his own trial. He had his own security guys. He didn't have me. He had his own security the January 5th. I mean, I wasn't his security. I was just there as his friend. And so were many others. But they just focused in and zoomed in on me because I'm the big bad guy. I'm friends with a guy that they don't really approve of. That's what this is all boiled down to. It's still discrimination and bias due to political affiliations. Your First Amendment is getting trampled on. And by the way, they've also trampled on the New York City labor law 201D, and that protects against any kind of engagement in political activities, because that's what this is. It was political activities. Being at Roger's rally that he spoke at on the 5th, he spoke that day. Just being there, that's protected in a political activity. By the way, none of this occurred in New York City. And also, Eric, if you remember, I worked the entire way. I was never modified or suspended. If I am such a bad cop, I'm such a bad man because I'm hanging out with Roger Stone or I'm pictured with whoever the hell they want to throw up that I'm pictured with, then why was I full duty? Why was I asked to go write summons every day that I didn't really want to do? I'm a DWI enforcement guy. I always stop the person and say, listen, are you drinking and driving? If you're not, I'm going to let you go because you know what? I'm not looking to hurt people. Writing summonses, you're hurting people. You don't have to do this all the time. That's why they give you discretion. I think some guys today lost track of this. Summonses are a way to correct a condition. Not everybody that has didn't signal on the right turn deserves to get a summons. And then it's just people need a break in life. They didn't commit any crime. That's how I saw it. I used to look for quality of life summonses, which then it became old summonses, and that was the end of that also. That the fun was out that. You can't correct the condition with an old summons because they laugh at you. They'll just keep doing it over and over again. But that was what I did as a cop. I was basically a broken windows guy. I like to write criminal court summonses, which corrected any quality of life condition so that nothing got out of hand in the commands. And then I would go out and look for a drunk driver. Moving summonses, listen, that may work. The city makes money. That's great. But you know what? The common man, he's getting screwed. So unless this guy acts like a jerk or he's not grateful or he tells you, he's giving you a lip about something, hear him out and then figure out what you're going to do because you don't have to write him. Sometimes that break can go a long way in this person's life. You're just trying to correct conditions. We're not out there like soldiers. Some cops, I think they're soldiers. This goes from even cops to other agencies, whether they're federal or sheriff. Don't be taking the job so serious because trust me, if you end up doing something like me where it's subjective or something that goes against the grain and you don't go along to get along, you'll end up just like me. So think long and hard about your actions in the street.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. It's insane, dude. It's like your case is it's the equivalent of me seeing a young kid driving a $250,000 car, pulling him over and being, you're a drug dealer, I'm taking you to jail. Meanwhile, the kid sells NFTs or he's an engineer geek somewhere, and he just looks like a young kid. Maybe he dresses like a thug or like a wise guy, and I find him guilty. No, he's guilty. It looks like he's dealing drugs, so we'll just arrest him. It's literally that. It's literally the same thing. Horrible what they did to you, man. It really is. It's absolutely horrible. And everything you're saying is right. My brother-in-law told me before I got on the job. He said, don't ever hurt the working man.
Yep.
Yeah, assholes out there. You don't need to write good people. You don't need to write a mother with her children. You don't need to write a guy going to work because he went 5 miles over the speed limit. And so, a bunch of people sent me a video yesterday of a patrol guy. I think it was in Manhattan, and he had a ruler. He had a tape measure. He had a tape measure, and he rolls up, and there's a fire hydrant.
Oh my God!
And he takes the He takes a tape measure and he goes from the fire hydrant all the way to where the car was to see if it was in whatever the range is. I don't know.
John, that was real?
I was real. And my only response, I didn't even post it on social media because I like my only response is every time I got the message was loser. But really, I almost don't blame him because maybe he never heard that. And maybe I would have been a different cop if I never heard that. And maybe I would have been a different cop if I didn't have senior guys on patrol telling me what to do and what not to do. You know? And I think we lost that in the police department. I mean, like, look, they see a guy like Sal Greco, he gets fired for absolutely no reason. They see just based on his political stand. They see a guy like Eric Dim, you know, going out there getting guns and you know, and his career was done. Like he was basically going to be shelved. He couldn't do his job effectively, even though he did his job effectively by the law, the way we were trained to do it. And you see a guy like me, right? I was very politically connected in the police department. I moved my way up. Everybody loved me on that job until I said, no, I'm not taking that job. You know what I mean? No, I'm not doing it. I'm not going along with that message. You know, I put my head down on a lot of other things. And I was always a vocal guy, but I didn't bring myself out there on social media or obviously on podcasts and news interviews until that happened. You know, and I think that's where we're at now, man. Like so as much as all these things, these bad things happened, I'm glad that like we've made this connection and we're starting to build a group to push back. And Sal, I know I pray for you every day. I know Eric Dim is always pulling for you. You know, we really want your case to be very successful and a shining light.
Praying for me, it means a lot, John. It means a lot, Eric, that you guys are praying for me. And there's a lot of people out there to support me. I don't really pay attention to the haters, even though I mention them. But, I go to church every Sunday, and it's been a very touching thing. I go to church. Roger comes with a whole church group that comes with me. And it means a lot to me because I've had 2 years of just pure chaos. No matter what it was, it's just this thing has eaten me alive. And it's 14 years of that, unfortunately, because I was in the police department. And, as the months have gone on, you kind of almost become a human being again, and you start to see how real life is now that you're not on this job anymore. And, it was just, it's taken a toll on me, on my family. As you know, I lost my father in the middle of this. They were chasing me around. I watched my father pass away right in front of me. We couldn't pay for his wake or funeral. That we were holding on to whatever money we had, not knowing what was going to happen to me. I mean, my father only knew that they were looking at me for something criminal, and he's dying and thinking his son might go to prison. And he knows that I would never do anything wrong because I never went to this building. I never stepped foot in a federal building with my firearm, let alone in a federal building. I've only been to a courthouse and they checked me in. So, this was very rough on me and my family. Like I said, I lost my savings. I lost my job. I lost my pension. I lost plenty of friends. I have a love interest that, they look at me, and then in the long run, I don't know about all of this because they stay hearing about all these things and people are in their ear. I've lost almost everything. But there's one thing I haven't lost is my faith. And every Sunday when I go to that church and I see those people and you hear everyone speaking and they're speaking the gospel of Jesus and Luke, and I'm hearing all these things, I feel reinvented again. Like I feel like you have a purpose in life, and you can't forget that. No matter how many people, if people don't believe in you and they think you're scum and everything, the same thing was going on with Jesus. The same thing happened around many people around Jesus. So I've kind of found my way back into life through God, or through the Lord, and through Jesus and through the church. And it's something that I strongly believe in now. And every night I'm praying, and listen, all these messages I'm getting, I'm seeing them. I talk to people. There's people texting me. There's people messaging me on different social media platforms besides, I think, Instagram or Twitter. But I see it, and it means everything to me. It means everything to my family also, because it touches me. Because I just remember when, I was in the 2-year odyssey. I didn't know what was going to happen. I really didn't. And I lost everything in the middle. So John and Eric, it does mean a lot that you guys have publicly defended me, because there was a time where nobody defended me. There was a time where people just said, "The hell with that guy. He's an animal. He's an insurrectionist. He's a right-wing extremist." And I'm none of those things. I'm just a regular guy who grew up in Brooklyn, who is the son of 2 Sicilian immigrants from Sicily that tried their best to make a home and goodwill to people, especially my father, who was a great man and could not even get a funeral. There's people today that still don't know that my father passed away. And that's because of this investigation. If I was speaking to anyone, they might have been chasing those people around for all I know. So this thing has really taken a bite out of my life, and it's kicked me in the rear end. And I've had it. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm going to fight this head on. I want to be the voice for everyone out there. And the reason that a beacon of light for people to say, you know what, if Sal, who's almost like David at this point, is taking on Goliath, the irresistible force is meeting the immovable object, and we're going head to head, and we're going to present this case. That is, I believe I think it's in my favor, because it's very egregious what happened. And I've been involved in many criminal cases because I did, arrest many people. I was in court for many, many years, and I really appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you for all the support. Thank you, everyone out there that has supported me. You can go to helpthisnycop.com. Believe me, when you contribute there or you buy my shirt or whatever, that really goes a long way in helping me, because I spent $50K of my own money that I didn't have. I needed to get loans. I almost bankrupted my own family because they couldn't pay their mortgage anymore because they gave me money. I had to pay this back. It's been a crazy time, okay? And I'm just going to leave you guys with this. And this is a saying. This is something that was instilled in me, not only by my father, because, I lived in the shadow of my father my whole life, and Roger lately. And I'm become now my own man with my own story, okay? So I'll leave you guys with this. The greatness comes not when things go always good for you, but the greatness comes when you're really tested, when you take some knocks, some disappointments, when sadness comes, because only if you've been in the deepest valley can you ever know how magnificent it is to be on the highest mountain. A man is not finished when he is defeated. A man is only finished when he quits, and I will never quit. Thank you. God bless everybody out there. Always believe, because I certainly believe, and I have faith that I'm going to get through this. And it's not just for me, but everyone out there, everybody who stands behind me. Thank you. Thank you, Eric and John. I love you guys. I love all my supporters out there. Everyone, thank you for believing in me and praying for me. I really feel it, and I really appreciate
it. Sal, I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. I think you've been targeted. It's been an overzealous investigation. I mean, John and I speak about this, and I feel that when your investigation was at its conclusion, I think they already had concluded a decision, which ultimately is how they got you to the misleading statements, because they already had their decision. And if you weren't going to agree with their decision or go along with it, they're going to get you with these misleading statements. And why? I think the ultimate reason is to have the disciplinary matrix weaponized to have you terminated. So it's all a ploy. It was all well orchestrated to have you terminated, weaponizing that discipline matrix. And I commend you, because I say this: if you did not take it to trial and you would have accepted a form of discipline along with a year dismissal probation, it's, in my opinion, you would have been retaliated against, and ultimately you would have been terminated.
Correct. Yeah.
So this disciplinary matrix was definitely weaponized against you. Could you, before we close, could you elaborate, though, if I'm correct? Do you recall this discipline matrix being weaponized against you? Any specific charges that John and I had mentioned on our discipline matrix podcast?
All the disciplinary matrix in the courtroom was actually the prosecutor had mentioned that the disciplinary matrix had stated that because of the charges they had on me, I must be terminated. So they did use the matrix against me, stating that because the matrix stated whatever certain amount of days it was for whatever violation they hit me with, that the too many days had accumulated on the penalty stage, the penalty days, the days for the penalties. Therefore, I should be terminated. That was what they recommended, and it was the disciplinary matrix is the reason why.
So, could you recall which actually specific charge it was in the matrix, and was any aggravating factors used against you? Was this the presumptive, penalty?
I believe it's that one you stated. The misleading statement one is the one that it's termination. We'll say right. 60, 90, 80 days, whatever it is. And this is misleading statement, therefore it should be termination. It's the accumulation of all the days combined makes this determination. That was how they explained it in the courtroom.
All right, well, Sal,
John, you think-
it was a pleasure, brother. You know, you and Roger. You know, I appreciate you both coming on. You know, it was good sitting down with us.
It was, and then like I said, I'm trying to turn a negative into a positive because it's been 2 years of this, and it's just time to make this a positive, not just for me, but for every single human being out there that this has happened to or believes in this cause. Because if you don't fight back, it's just going to get worse. There needs to be some kind of challenge. If you're going to come with this nonsense and try to ruin someone's life and you don't even have anything concrete, this should not be happening. Not in this country anyway.
Sal, I commend you. You showed strength, moral principles, unlike the 4-8 precinct commanding officer, along with Chief Juanita Holmes and other weak executives of the New York City Police Department that have showed cowardice and a weakness and zero vision, zero leadership. John refers to them as managers, completely weak and timid, and just placating to the public for this anti-police advocate. They're eating the police department within. I commend you. I commend Roger Stone. I commend you for being an advocate, fighting for the First Amendment. You're fighting for other police officers who could be you. John, thank you so much for taking this journey with me. It's been nothing but a hell of a ride. I enjoy speaking out the truth and trying to help people like yourself. We all need to stick with this together, strength in numbers. And like I said, you know what? Don't let the NYPD define you. You have a new path in life. You have your faith. It's only going to make you stronger. And one day, 20, 30 years from now, you're going to look back and say, you know what? I took a stance. I got my moral principles. And you're going to have your dignity. And I promise you, your name will be cleared. And in the end, you will be the one walking tall.
Thank you, Eric. It means a lot that you said that because I really believe it has a good chance of becoming that.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. 65 Police Live. We are the experts. Sal, we want to have you back on soon, brother.
It'd be my pleasure, John. Like I said, God bless to you guys, and God bless everyone out there, even the haters. And just keep me in your prayers, and I keep everyone in my prayers. I wish the best for everybody.